Um, so I wanted to talk about radical decluttering because it's a pretty strange term, right? Like, what is so radical about my approach to decluttering? And right off the bat, I want to tell you that um, what is so radical about it is that it's a no shame game. That's number one. No shame game, which I'm going to talk more about in a second. Number two, I encourage people to approach it with compassion and curiosity instead of frustration, self-flagellation. Like, let's figure out how to identify and clear those blocks, whatever the obstacles are on that trail that you want to blaze, whatever it is, thoughts, things, or people. Let's take a different approach to them and do it from a place of compassion and curiosity. Clearly, if beating yourself up was working, your stuff would be cleared by now, right? You'd be able to kind of take care of it and handle it. But that's not working, and there's a reason why. So, no shame game, approach it with curiosity and compassion, and learning to use your stubborn clutter as a catalyst for change in your life. It can be a catalyst to clear larger blocks and obstacles, things like limiting beliefs or the need for boundaries, right? It can help you to do that. Unrealistic expectations. Those are the three core causes of all stubborn clutter. I guarantee you, if you told me what was blocking you in your life, it would be one of those three things that is driving it underneath, and usually a combination. So again, those three, I'm going to type them in here so I can put them up on the screen. These are the three common core causes of all stubborn clutter. Three, the need for boundaries. Okay, so I'm going to put these up on the screen so you can see, so you can jot these down. These are the three common core causes of any kind of clutter: paperwork, clothes, toxic friendships, weight on your body, anything. It's going to be unrealistic expectations, limiting beliefs, or the need for boundaries. And again, they can play together. Like, limiting beliefs is really the core of the core. Limiting beliefs is what's going to prompt you to have unrealistic expectations for yourself. And it's also going to be the reason why you struggle to set boundaries. So it really boils down to those three. So that is part of my radical approach as well. I'm not just saying, oh, come on, you can do it. Just, choose 20 books to get rid of. Yeah, I might encourage you to do that as a way to kind of poke the bear a little bit. I would want you to do that and then tell me what came up for you when you did it, or tell me how you talked yourself out of even doing it. That always helps me peel back the layers. And so that's why in my first book, when I wrote What Your Clutter is Trying to Tell You, that's what I'm talking about, that there's more to your clutter than just the stuff. It's not just about that. So that's kind of the radical approaches, and also learning to see how much of your success is actually just in the action that you take and not in the outcome or what you complete. Because the better you get at taking action, then the better you're going to be at finishing anything, right? When you get good at getting started, you inevitably finish. Even if you're this close to the finish line and you sabotage yourself left and right, I want to know why. Like, if you're that close and you're sabotaging yourself, there's likely a belief at play or a boundary that's needed. Um, my hunch is it's going to be a belief. So, my approach, what's so radical about my approach, is this compassionate, curious, investigative, loving, small step approach, which I know when you're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, you just want things to happen fast. This is a total tortoise and the hare scenario. The tortoise is going to win every time. Yeah, Sarah says here that she's discovered a few limiting beliefs over the past couple years. So not only do we then discover the limiting beliefs, then we dive into, okay, great. Now do we know what some of them are? Let's work on dismantling the old and replacing it with healthy, positive, new ones that are the opposite of the old ones. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole deep dive of beliefs because that's an hour in and of itself or more. But know that every single one of us is walking around with limiting beliefs. Every single person on the planet. They are things and thoughts that we formed when we were young to help us navigate, as Prince would say, this thing called life, right? We were just trying to figure out how things work. And so we were observing our environment, the people in it, and learning how to handle situations. Oh, okay. So when you are angry with someone, you should just not talk to them for a few days. Or, um, if you want to make, it's not okay to make more money. It's not very spiritual. Don't take more than you need. Like there are all of these things that we learn about how life operates when we're younger that work for us then to kind of survive and thrive in our dynamic or in our environment. Then as we grow up, we inevitably bump up against ones that no longer work for us because they have morphed into bigger things. So this is what's so radical about my approach. I'm not a home organizer. That's not what I do. I'm not going to tell you the best bins to buy or the baskets, although I got some cool ones that I like that I might recommend. But it's not about the bins and the baskets. It's about the beliefs and the boundaries. Oh, that's good. I got to remember that. It's not about the bins and the baskets. It's about the beliefs and the boundaries. So really, like when I say that, like all stubborn clutter has something deeper to look at, I want to give you an example um, from my first book because it really highlights the point well. Um, so this is a quick little story about a past client of mine called Samantha. Not really her name to protect. Hey, Dale. So my client Samantha talked about putting her house on the market for months. She and her boyfriend had been dating long distance for 2 years, and they had decided to move in together, with Samantha relocating to his area. She loved where he lived, and she sounded really excited to make it her home. She knew she needed to clean out her garage before she could list her house for sale. Her real estate agent had made that very clear to her. She had twice rallied friends and family to help get the space organized, and each time they had made some real progress, but then the space filled up again. And Samantha said, "It feels like I take one step forward and two steps back." So she and I talked about what kinds of things ended up back in the garage, making it cluttered again. Well, I let a friend put some boxes and lawn equipment in there for just a few days while he figures out what to do with it. But those few days turned into a few weeks. I shifted the conversation and asked her to tell me about her plans for relocating. How did she feel about it? Was she ready for the next step in the relationship? What was it like to think about no longer living where she currently did? And of course, she started with all of the expected answers about how much she loved her boyfriend, how she was excited about this new chapter, how she was stressed about the logistics of moving. And then she mentioned it, the key to the clutter that my clutter whisperer ears hear. I'm a little hesitant to be so far away from my parents. They're healthy and independent, but they're also no spring chickens, she said. As we talked more about her parents and her relationship with them, I learned she was the child who tended to take charge and organize when they needed something. We spent the rest of our conversation brainstorming ideas on how she could still be intimately involved with their needs and care, even from a distance. So she talked to her siblings about her concern and asked for their help so they could all be more involved with their parents. Once Samantha had that conversation and got support from her siblings, she couldn't believe how much easier it was to clean out her garage. So the part of her that feared change for whatever reason, and for her it was about, her parents not being tended to, kept filling up the space to make her stay put because her agent said, "You've got to get that garage cleared up before we can list this house." This was back when houses weren't selling within a day, right? So she didn't know why she couldn't get that garage cleared out. And again, talked about how, she would beat herself up for being such a procrastinator, lazy, unmotivated. She started to doubt her relationship with her boyfriend. But once we excavated what was really going on, she needed to set some boundaries with her siblings. Now, boundaries, that word could scare a lot of people. Doesn't mean she had to have this scary conversation. She just needed to fill them in on what she was feeling So they could say, "Oh my God, it's totally fine. Like, we will step up. We got this. Like, we know you've been usually the one to take care of things. We'll step up more." They were happy to do it. She was like, "Oh my God, this is so great. Thank you so much." And so she was like, "Wow, that conversation did it." But there was a belief behind there that was telling her, she had to be the one to do it. She couldn't ask them for help. She didn't want to disappoint them. All of these stories she was telling herself, all of that was keeping all of the stuff stuck in her garage and stopping her from moving on to this next chapter of her life. So this is what I mean when I say stubborn clutter has a story for you. I call it a temper tantrum of the soul. And it really is. It has a story for you. We just need you to get quiet and listen to it, right? So that is really what I want. That's what I'm doing in my course that's coming up on October 27th. It starts 10 days from today, and it's my Radical Decluttering video course. This is a 6-week course where we do just this. We look at the common clutter hotspots, because where you accumulate clutter and what you tend to accumulate. So the types and the locations of where and what you accumulate for clutter has a lot to say about which of those 3 core causes are running the show. And so in this 6-week course, I'm going to tell you the 6 weeks and what they entail so you can have a good sense. So lesson 1, the first week we talk about redefining clutter. We dive even deeper into what I'm sharing here tonight, which is about it being so much more than just the stuff. And we look at some of the common clutter hotspots and their meanings underneath. And I'm going to give you a few examples in just a minute. Lesson 2, week 2, we talk about secret messages and physical clutter. That's when we really look at things like books and clothes, um, whatever it may be, weight on your body, relationships, and what your soul is really asking from you by getting your attention in those ways. Week 3, we talk about systems and structure. 3, we get down and dirty, hands in the dirt. We're getting you organized. We are putting systems in place. We're getting you to remove clutter before it even becomes a part of your world, unsubscribing from things, canceling catalog subscriptions. We get really practical in week 3 to help you really put into place action to address the concepts we just talked about in weeks 1 and 2. So 3 is where the rubber meets the road. And it's like, okay, now that you are thinking about clutter in a different way and you have some ideas of the messages underneath it, now let's get to work, and so you can see this in action. So then, lesson 4, we come back the next week and we talk about mental clutter, right? All the chatter that's going on in your head as you were trying to do the work from the previous week. That's going to help us start to discover the 3 core causes of clutter and which are going on for you. So lesson 4 is all about mental clutter. And then lesson 5 is where we drop even deeper, and it's about emotional clutter. This is where we talk more about boundaries and beliefs, and we dig in deeper to kind of how to recognize where you need boundaries in your life, the language to go about setting them, or different ways you can set them. Some of them are silent boundaries. And then beliefs, a quick lesson on how they form, what they are, and how you might be validating them today through your clutter, right? So and then lesson 6, full recap, wrap up, and Q&A. So we jam pack a lot in those 6 weeks. Um, but that's what's so great is you have lifetime access to this course, to the course you take, you have lifetime access. So if you can't make it live, you'll see if you go to that link that's on the screen, we're meeting every Wednesday from October 27th to December 1st at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. So every Wednesday we'll come together. If you can't make it live, no worries at all. Every class is recorded and replays are sent out within 24 hours. And you have lifetime access to those recordings. There's also the private Facebook group for those of you on Facebook. It's a great place, especially if you can't make the classes live. It's a great place to come to get additional support and coaching. I spend a ton of time in the group. And then your fellow participants are there to support you, celebrate you, give you advice and encouragement as needed. So it's a really beautiful 6 full weeks of coaching and support, with each live lesson being just that, a specific lesson that I'm teaching. Um, yes, Sarah, I saw that you registered. It's so great to have you back in there. Um, so I'm going to just put that October 27th through December 1. It's Wednesdays at noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Oops, a.m. Pacific Time. Okay. And so I also want to mention, so I'm coming on live here as well, that there's an early bird special, the pricing that ends on Tuesday night. So you can save $50 if you register by Tuesday night. So right now your investment will just be $197 for the full course that you'll have lifetime access to. Come Tuesday night, it's going to be $247. So if you go to Radical Decluttering, KerryRichardson.com, Radical Decluttering, or just go to KerryRichardson.com and you'll see the link right there on the homepage. You can jump on and register. So as you're thinking about that, I want to give a couple examples of some of the meaning behind some of the most common types of clutter. So first, I'll talk about clothes because we all have clothes clutter. Even if you have a minimalist wardrobe, there's a good chance you have some things in there that you haven't really been wearing much. So I'm sure you can guess what the messages your clothes are sending you are. It's you're not thin enough, attractive enough, stylish enough, fun enough, just not enough. What hangs on that rod is so much more than just fabric. It can make you feel pretty bad about yourself. The memories and feelings associated with those items can make cleaning out your bedroom closet much more difficult than it needs to be. Some may trigger happy memories, other painful, but both can make it difficult to let go of them. So taking a look at your clothes and or your dresser and just seeing if you can find 5 items that you haven't worn for 6 months or more. And now ask yourself, what is the impetus behind keeping those items? Now, there are exceptions, right? You might have, a spring dress in there that is only good for the springtime. And so you want to kind of hang on to that, fine. But what are 5 kind of common pieces of clothing that you haven't worn in 6 months or more? And why might that be? Worth looking at, right? Um, so that, it's going to be more than just, like I said, than just the stuff hanging on there. Family heirlooms or sentimental items. So these have a lot of expectations, obligations, memory, joy, sadness, regret attached to them. Your grandmother's locket, family photo albums, your father's favorite recliner, your mother's formal dishes. Items like these, when not cherished or wanted, can still be nearly impossible to pass on. Does getting rid of them mean you don't love your grandmother, mother, or father? Are you a bad daughter for no longer keeping something? Right? So what are the stories you're telling yourself about those items? And I tell a story in my book here, and I've told the story many times. Those of you who are familiar with me have heard it, but my father once bought me an adorable music box in the shape of a phonograph. I loved it because it came from him and the song it played. And I remember the day he gave it to me. We were out poking around in some gift shops with my mom. And when we got back in the car, he handed me the gift bag and he said, "Thought you might like this, kid." And I can still, to this day, when I tell that story, see the joy on his face when he gave it to me and when I opened it. And then one day it fell from a high shelf and broke beyond repair. I kept it in pieces on my desk for weeks because I didn't want to let it go. Then I realized seeing it broken made me sad. It no longer gave me the heartwarming memory of shopping with my dad and his giving it to me. All I thought about was that it was broken. So I got rid of it. And while I miss the music box by not having the obliterated remnants staring me in the face, I get to enjoy the memory of that day. Excuse me. Even now, when after my dad has passed, I think about that music box and that day with love, even without the box being on my desk. The box broke, but my memory didn't. Right? So when you think about sentimental items, I guarantee you that grandma is not looking down on you and thinking, "I'm so glad she still has that locket, even though she doesn't like it." She's not in that locket. Only keep it if you cherish it and love it. Whatever you decide, she'll be with you always. So sentimental items can be representative of feelings of guilt and obligation. And if you're keeping things out of guilt and obligation, there's a good chance you're being ruled by guilt and obligation elsewhere in your life, right? You're making other decisions out of guilt. Um, then finally, draining relationships. Think about the people in your life. Are they loving, supportive, inspiring? Do you often feel taken advantage of, walked on? Are you exhausted after spending time with some of them? Having relationships that drain you can send a message to yourself that you don't believe you're worthy of kindness or of being treated well, or that your needs don't matter as much as everyone else's. Whatever you allow to happen will continue. I really want you to hear that because boundaries is a big one. Whatever behavior you allow to happen will continue. Flip the script and make your needs a priority. So really thinking about like what is the story I tell myself that rumbles beneath the things I tolerate in my life. Paperwork on your desk, pounds on your body, toxic relationships or draining friendships, piles on your countertops, whatever it may be. I define clutter as anything that gets in the way of you living your dream life. Anything. So I want you to redefine clutter for yourself, right? Clutter is just a word. We give it so much power. It's just a catch all term for anything that is on that trail you want to blaze. And when it's clutter, it can be cleared. And if you struggle to clear it, there's a deeper reason why. That's what I dive into in my radical decluttering course that starts in 10 days.